Most people today, put their trust in insulated sleeping bags rated by temperature, tested in labs, and optimized by outdoor brands. But long before any of that, WWII soldiers, sleep-deprived, under-equipped, and operating in some of the roughest climates on Earth, developed sleep systems that could actually outperform modern gear when used correctly. These weren't hacks or gimmicks. They were field-forged techniques built out of necessity, refined under fire, and preserved quietly in after-action reports, regimental diaries, ranger manuals, and POW escape testimonies. These men were sleeping in frozen foxholes, swamp floors, desert night drops, and collapsed buildings while carrying about half the insulation a modern hiker does. Yet their documented survival rates in cold exposure stand up shockingly well against modern expectations. That's why this topic deserves more than just casual curiosity. If you've ever wondered how a paratrooper in the Ardennes slept with nothing but a poncho, or how Pacific recon teams kept warm during overnight observation despite humidity that soaked every thread, well, you're in the right place. What follows isn't romance, nostalgia, or fantasy. It's the real methodology used by soldiers who didn't have the luxury of failure. And if you spend time outdoors, hike in unpredictable weather, or just appreciate the engineering of human adaptation, you're about to pick up techniques that still hold up today. WWII armies didn't issue sleeping bags to everyone. The US Army didn't even standardize its M1943 sleeping bag until late in the war, and honestly, many units never received it. So men turned their clothing into a modular heat trap. They slept wearing their base layers dry and removed anything damp, even if it meant staying slightly colder for the first few minutes. Once your field jacket, trousers or socks are wet, your body burns energy drying them instead of when s'adouane to Sankofonsa kwaya de blondes, tafika kan sa de mogens kan plan. Tanke France veentomt, ont de grand bijnstofstand van Reuze, affin. Diaries from the 10th Mountain Division repeatedly reference soldiers hanging socks under their shirts against their skin to dry them before sleep. You can reproduce this method today with nothing more than whatever you hiked in. The principle is simple. Dry fabric insulates, damp fabric drains heat. If you must sleep in the field without a bag, strip down to your driest layer, use your outer layers as a shell, and place anything damp against your core only if you need to dry it overnight. The technique sounds counterintuitive until you try it. Then you realize why it kept frostbite rates surprisingly low among units trained in cold weather procedure. Modern sleeping bags fail when the insulation underneath you compresses. WWII soldiers didn't need a physics lesson to understand this. They felt it instantly. In every climate report from the Eastern Front to the Aleutians, the same warning appears. Protect your underside or lose heat faster than you can generate it. Most armies solved this with whatever material was most available. In Europe, soldiers cut spruce boughs, leaves, burlap sacks, even abandoned grain sacks stuffed with straw. British commandos in Norway slept on inverted skis lined with brush. Pacific Marines, who couldn't find dry plant matter, learned to make dry islands using 2 layers of ponchos with a few inches of air gap trapped between them. The air layer, not the poncho, did the insulating. You can replicate the principle easily. If you find yourself unexpectedly sleeping outdoors, don't start by building a roof. Start with the floor. Even a folded jacket, backpack, or pile of brush multiplies your heat retention immediately. Place the driest material closest to your body and layer rougher or wetter materials underneath. This single lesson, insulate downward first, outperforms many modern sleeping setups used improperly. Vapor barrier liners didn't become common outdoor equipment until decades after the Second World War, yet several armies independently discovered the concept. The Finnish army, fighting in brutal winter conditions, routinely wrapped their feet in cellophane-like paper or oiled cloth between sock layers. The goal wasn't to add warmth, but to prevent sweat from soaking the outer insulation. Once wool is wet in sub-freezing temperatures, it might as well be a sponge. American troops in the Aleutians discovered a similar trick using waxed bread bags or ration wrappers. The method didn't feel pleasant. Your feet sweat and the inner layer stays moist, but the insulation outside stays bone dry. Dry insulation means survival. A modern survivalist can, reproduce this instantly with something as simple as a plastic grocery bag, or even a trash bag liner placed between sock layers. It's not comfortable, but it works, and honestly, it's a direct lineage from the field improvisation of men who endured minus 20 degrees Celsius winds without modern gear. One of the most overlooked World War II sleep methods involved micro-sheltering, shrinking your heat loss footprint as much as possible. Paratroopers in the Ardennes frequently slept sitting up with a poncho wrapped tightly around their knees, chest and head in a sort of self-bivvy configuration. Rangers in Italy, they slept with their heads inside their smocks, controlling breath direction so moisture didn't frost their clothing. This wasn't for comfort, it was for efficiency. The smaller the airspace around you, the faster your body can warm it. Modern sleeping bags accomplish this with design. Soldiers accomplished it manually. Right, try this out in the field. Sit or lie down with your knees up and then wrap your outer layer around your legs. After that, just tuck the edges under your feet or your hips. This creates a warm pocket much faster than just spreading your clothing loosely over your body. If all you've got is a poncho, pull it tight around your torso and tuck the hem under your thighs. Within just a few minutes, you'll create a microclimate that, mimics the function of a lightweight sleeping bag. Cold weather units in the Second World War, especially on the Eastern Front and up in the far north, they routinely used body heat pairing. Soviet manuals, they call it soplechnoe sniatie koloda, shoulder-to-shoulder heat sharing. Alpine troops in Italy, they slept back-to-back to reduce exposed surface area. Even United States winter warfare training in Colorado taught soldiers to sleep in pairs or threes under one shelter half. It wasn't sentimental. It was thermodynamics. Two bodies in close contact reduce heat loss by cutting exposed radiating surface area nearly in half. A modern survivalist stuck outdoors with a partner can dramatically increase warmth by replicating this. Sit back to back, share a poncho or tarp over both bodies, and keep the open edges sealed. It doesn't replace insulation, but, it multiplies the effectiveness of whatever insulation you already have. Every method you've read here translates cleanly to modern use: dry layers, closest to the body, maximum ground insulation, vapor barrier, improvisation, tight micro-sheltering and shared heat in emergencies. Combine them and you have a sleep system that functions shockingly well, even without a sleeping bag. Try running a field test. Sleep outdoors with only a jacket, poncho and natural insulation. Not recklessly, but intentionally, step by step. You'll understand instantly why WWII veterans trusted these methods enough to survive conditions far worse than most hikers will ever face. If this deep dive into forgotten WWII sleep techniques gave you new insight, make sure you subscribe to Forgotten Frontlines, share this with fellow history enthusiasts, and keep the channel growing so we can continue uncovering the fieldcraft, decisions, and survival systems that shaped real wartime experience.